all the things we worry about, guess what? The slave trade's back. In fact, it never really stopped if you want to define it a number of ways. Oh, look at that. I tried to get the story and suspended page. Couldn't get the story. How about that? What a shock. Freedom of speech. Now, the slave trade has grown due to the increase in armed conflict, state-sponsored forced labour and forced marriages. Now, you'd think a free press that values human rights would have covered this. Why would they want that quiet? Why is that not front page news? Why are we giving $93 million to Pakistan, who has a ton of nuclear weapons and stones people to death, when we could be helping people in a real and tangible way? Who would want this story kept off the front page? And once again, our much vaunted ABC hasn't said a word. And I don't expect a commercial to, because they're just there to sell ad space. So once again, we get this image that the media are a group of self-interested individuals pursuing their own agenda. And that's okay, that's normal. You can't change human nature, but you set things up to mitigate against it. And we don't. 9.2 million Africans currently live in a level of servitude. $400 will buy a strong black man. That's what they cost. Brutal slaughter of Christians in Africa. My God, does anyone know the most persecuted religion on the planet at the moment?
Yeah, Christians.
Ever heard that on TV?
No.
Has our wonderful ABC full of human rights advocates and gay and lesbian Mardi Gras dancing Human Rights Commission people said a word about this?
No.
Why? It's a story. You need a strong stomach. I've put the less offensive ones up, but there's some pretty rotten ones going on. Let's go through a few. Christian boy in Uganda was strangled and threatened with death for refusing to convert to Islam. And you'll see a bit of a pattern here, so forgive me if it's a bit obvious. Christian missionary kidnapped by Nigerian cult, shot and killed after singing Amazing Grace. No story there, folks, don't worry about it. Nothing to see. 5 church leaders in Sudan were arrested after refusing to cancel a worship service. And Muslims extremists hacked Christians to death with machetes after they refused to convert. I didn't put it up, I will mention it to you. At one point, they went through a village, they collected all the kids, and you know those large industrial bread kneading machines? They put them through that alive.
Oh my God.
Now, why wasn't that front page news? Who would want that kept quiet? Whose agenda would this story interfere with? And the list goes on and on. Turush Gamir, the rape gang. You heard about that? Gangs of Muslim youths in Europe will circle a young lady and rape her. It's called the rape gang. Not dissimilar to one that's in Afghanistan, called Bachi Bazi, boy gangs. There's a famous story of a US Special Forces officer who beat an Afghan policeman brutally because he had a 10-year-old boy chained to his bed. And the American Special Forces officer was required to cooperate with this Afghan copper as they were chasing the Taliban. And one day he said, you know what? I think I've had enough. You ever heard about Bazi Bazi? No?
I have heard.
Couple? Okay, good. This is the tip of the iceberg, folks. The world is a mean and nasty place. And you don't know much about it. And you can thank your media for that. Organ harvesting in China. Have we heard about this one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You can book. There's no waiting list. You can book whatever you want. And you'll get a match in no time. Now, the 2 sources for the organ harvesting in China come from the Falun Gong, who believe in peace and meditation and being nice. That's too destructive for the Chinese Communist Party. And so they get their health, very healthy bodies, because they eat right and they meditate, and so they get healthy organs. Minimises rejection. But if you're a Muslim, for example, from the Middle East, you can get halal organs because they do the same with the Uyghur people, the Chinese Muslims. And they just take them away and they take organs out and they sell them. You read that in... Tony Jones covered that, did he? No? Oh, I'm surprised.
Tony.
Koshi mentioned that at all? No?
No.
Are you beginning to see And I apologise for being the messenger with bad tidings. Don't shoot me. This is your media. Economic indicators in the US. Trump. Orange man mad. Orange man bad. Oh, Trump. He's worse than Hitler. He's worse than Hitler. He's worse than Hitler. Well, if you listen to ABC, he is. But have you seen the economic indicators out of the US? Hispanic employment, all-time high. African American employment, all-time high. Food stamp usage, all-time low. Dow Jones Industrial, through the roof. He's beating records everywhere. But what is Australia here? Orange man bad. Close to Hitler. Child rape crisis in Central Australia. Do we know about that? The Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Nigel Scullion, was not once interviewed by any member of the media throughout this entire period. And it is so bad. You've got 2- and 3-year-olds with syphilis and gonorrhea, and they get raped by family members and they get sent back because we don't want another stolen generation. Did you ever hear about that?
Oh, yeah.
Did you hear about the young girl that was gang raped so many times she committed suicide, young Aboriginal girl?
Yeah.
And not once did Nigel Scullion get interviewed by one member of the media. His name wasn't even mentioned. No, but he turned up with the Uluru Agreement. So let's have Aboriginal Indigenous recognition in the Constitution. Really? That's your priority? Not your kids? Okay. To each their own. The unconstitutional trading of water rights.
Yes.
It's unconstitutional, Section 100. And I'm not a lawyer, but it's not hard to read it. It's in plain language. Our founding fathers were clever guys. They wrote a good document, and they wrote it very plainly. And yet, and there's a Singaporean general saying, we have the best, Australia has the best water trading in the world. It's fantastic. He's making millions. Have you heard one reporter on one news service, public or private, mention the fact that it is unconstitutional to do this?
No.
Of course not. Who would want that kept quiet? Starting to get the picture? Did you know that 30 private dams were publicly funded and filled with water that belongs to farmers, but they're not getting it? Who would want that kept quiet? Whose agenda would that interfere with?